students, welcome to this session of Master Mains PYQ, an initiative of NEXT IAS. So we are back with another video in this series, and after doing a little bit of GS paper 3 and GS paper 1, we are back to complete GS paper 2 today, the polity section of GS paper 2 to be precise. And I hope you have received your question and you have written the answer to it also. So we will be straight away jumping into the question for the day. This particular question, it was a polity question asked in this year's GS paper 2 mains, right? So the question was, discuss the role of presiding officers of state legislature in maintaining order and impartiality in conducting legislative work and facilitating the best democratic practices, right? So it was a 10 marker to be answered for 150 words. And if you look at the syllabus area, so structure, the functioning of the parliament and state legislature is specifically mentioned in your syllabus, and along with it the conduct of business is listed as a subtopic there, so you can locate this question over there. Now, why has UPSC chosen this question? Now, thematically speaking, very frankly, the presiding officers, the role of presiding officers, it is always in news for one or the other reasons, be it anti-defection, be it suspension of opposition MPs. So the presiding officers at the union level or at the state level, they are always in news. The office of the deputy speaker was very much in news in recent times. So there can be a lot of factors, and thematically speaking, it's one of the favorite themes of UPSC. Last, they have asked this question on office of the speaker in UPSC mains 2020. You can go back and check that question. Now, this particular question, it's a 10 marker. Now, first thing that we need to decide over here is, after reading the question, that what would be the demand of the question. So let us just proceed and understand a little bit of how we are going to structure the answer. What is the key core objective of the question? What are the important things that we need to note when we are writing an answer for this particular question? The first thing that you need to note is the directive. It is discuss, right? So we have discuss given as the listed down as the directive. Now, it is talking about discuss the role of presiding officers of state legislature specifically in maintaining order and impartiality, and two words are mentioned: conducting the legislative work and facilitating the best democratic practices, right? So it is specifically talking about two aspects of their role, that is conducting of the legislative work and facilitating the best democratic practices. Now, as far as discuss as a directive is concerned, it entirely depends on the context of the question. What is the context of the question? And based on the context of the question, the student has to understand that whether he has to bring out that critical aspect of the debate that is underlying in the question, underlying in the discourse of the question. Right. Now, if you look at the role of presiding officers in recent times, be it state legislatures, be it at the level of parliament, their role has been both good and controversial. As far as conducting the legislative work is there, and the facilitating the best democratic practices on the floor of the house is concerned, right? So you cannot isolate this question from that discourse. So discuss in essence here would want you to debate, right? You need to understand what is the debate in this particular answer. Now, how would we go about? So very simply, introduction, body, conclusion, but the body part of the answer, you have to bring out that debate. So in the first part, you have to highlight what is their crucial role as far as maintaining order and impartiality in conducting the legislative work is concerned, facilitating the best democratic practices are concerned, but then what are the issues in these regards, right? So you have to bring out that part in your answer also, right? So many people don't understand this, but in essence, you always need to understand what is the context of the question, what is going around when you are writing a UPSC answer, and that is very important, right? So moving on, how would you proceed with the introduction? Like, we have discussed about the demand of the question and all. How would you proceed with the introduction? So you can have a very simplistic introduction. You can list down constitutional articles pertaining to office of the speaker and deputy speaker, chairman, deputy chairman of the state legislature. So we know that articles 178 and 182 of the Constitution of India, they basically provide for office of the speaker and deputy speaker and chairman and deputy chairman, right, at the level of state assemblies and state legislative councils, right. Other than that, you can also quote about the relevance of the office of the speaker. Now, to quote here, you can take reference to one of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's statements about office of the speaker. So Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he made very good observation about the office of the speaker, and he said that speaker represents the dignity and freedom of the house, and because the house represents the country, so in essence the speaker is also a symbol of the speaker is also a symbol of country's freedom and liberty, right. So you can also take this alternate approach to introduce your answer, right. Now, this is all about introduction. There can be multiple approaches here. You can use constitutional articles. You can start very briefly. You can use some reference to some important personalities, observations about office of speakers, whatever works for you better, right. So moving on to the body of the question. Now, coming to the body of the question, if you look at this particular question, it is talking about role of the presiding officers in maintaining order and impartiality across two different aspects. One is conducting legislative work and the other is facilitating best democratic practices. And we also need to bring out the issues in this regards, right. So essentially, you should understand that even if you're writing two parts to this answer, your focus on the first part should be under two subheadings, that is legislative work and also facilitating best democratic practices. These are two different essential roles of the speaker. So you have to justify each of them by highlighting at least 2 to 3 points in their regard. Now, let us how would you proceed basically with this second part, the body. So we will create a heading, role of speaker or presiding officers of the state legislatures, right, in maintaining order and impartiality, right. So that is what the question is expecting. Under that, we can create a subheading, that is as far as legislative work is concerned. Now, when we are talking about legislative work, the first and the most important role of the presiding officer is the maintenance of order. He is responsible for conduct of business. So maintenance of order. So the presiding officer are responsible for conducting the business, and while conducting the business, they are also responsible for maintaining parliamentary decorum, right. So in order to ensure parliamentary decorum in the house, they have the power to suspend the MPs. They have the power to take actions against MPs to ensure that the proceedings of the house are not abruptly disrupted, right. So that is the first power that you can highlight. The second is protection of freedom of speech and expression, right. So the presiding officers, they are considered as the guardian of freedom of speech and expression on the floor of the house, and these presiding officers are the ones who basically allocate time for debates and discussions over various issues of public importance, right. So they are regarded as guardians of freedom of speech and expression on the floor of the house, and in this way they conduct a very important role as far as the legislative work is concerned, right, because one of the core functions of the parliament or the state legislature is deliberation and discussion, right. So they they facilitate everything to uphold this role, right. Moving on, the next important point that you can highlight under legislative work here would be ensuring civil and respectful debate. So even when the debate is happening, right? So the presiding officers, they play a very vital role in ensuring that the debate should remain civil and respectful at all times, right? So they call members to order who engage in personal attacks, who use offensive languages, right? Who try to breach the decorum of the house. Other than that, as far as conducting the business on the floor of the house is concerned, so it requires interpretation of the Constitution of India and the rules and procedures of the house, right? So impartiality in interpretation is perhaps one of the key roles of the speaker. So if you look at one of the crucial roles of the presiding officers, it is that they are the final interpreters of the Constitution of India and the rules of procedures on the floor of the house. Now this is very important to maintain impartiality and neutrality on the floor of the house, that all the interpretations and decisions are taken in a very politically neutral way, which most of the times the presiding officers do. So they interpret these rules and the procedures not for the convenience of any particular political party, but to conduct the legislative work in the house very smoothly, right? So these are the various aspects you can highlight in under the legislative work. Now coming to facilitating the best democratic practices. So this part of the answer, again, you will have to make a heading. So we'll make a heading, subheading, facilitating best democratic practices, right? So under this subheading, you can again proceed to write on various roles played by the presiding officers, and one of the very important roles is his role as a quasi judicial authority, right? So the presiding officers, they have a very important duty as a quasi judicial body as far as matters pertaining to disqualifications, right, under the 10th schedule is concerned, the anti-defection, right, or suspension of MPs. So when it comes to the suspensions of MPs from the house, so they act basically as a quasi judicial authority, and these roles are very important to ensure parliamentary decorum and constitutionalism is upheld on the floor of the house. So when a member is accused of crossing the floor and voting for another party, or he has done something to attract disqualification, the speaker will be the authority to take a call on that. Similarly, when it goes to suspension of MPs and other things, right? So his role as a quasi judicial body is to facilitate democratic ideals on the floor of the house, right? Moving on to the next important point, he ensures formation of committees, formation of committees. So the presiding officers, they have a big role to play as far as formation of these committees are concerned. For example, we have departmental related standing committees, or the business advisory committee, right? So there are lots of committees, and the speaker has a huge role to play in formation of these committees. For a fair and balanced representation of the house in this committee, the speaker is responsible, and it directly impacts the legislative work, right? So you know that these committees are basically the mini parliaments. Most of the legislative work, it happens under these committees. They are deemed to be as mini parliaments. So it is very important to have a democratic alignment as far as possible, a fair representation in these committees, right? So the speaker does that, and therefore he upholds the best democratic practices in them, because most of the discussion deliberation anyway is going to happen in these committees, right? Moving on to the next point that you can highlight is, you can talk about accountability of the executive, right? So accountability of the executive is one important aspect that the speaker upholds. We will write accountability of the executive, right? So better manage to ensure that the government of the day is upheld, the executive is upheld on the floor of the house, it's responsible to the legislature. So and to ensure the better management of this accountability of the executive, the speaker has a huge role to play as far as question hour is concerned, 0 hour is concerned, right? So we are going to talk about question hour, the 0 hour, various important motions like adjournment motion, right? We can talk about censure motion to hold the government or the executive accountable on the floor of the house for their actions, right? Now the next point that you're going to talk about as far as the role of the speaker in facilitating best democratic practices are concerned, he has a huge role to play in consensus building, right? So as far as consensus building is concerned, he holds meetings with leaders of different political parties to discuss the agenda, right, of the house, and he incorporates their viewpoints on what issues to be taken up before the house. So he tries to ensure the inclusivity and the participation of all political voices, right? So this is how he ensures best democratic practices on the floor of the house. So this is part of the first part of the body. I have stressed it. You just need to write 5 points here, so you can select 3 2 from both the aspects, right? You can create a subheading, or you can at max go for a stretch of 6 points there if you're writing very briefly, right? But definitely not more than 6 points, it's not recommended. Moving on, the next important part of the body would be the issues that are coming up. So next we are going to discuss the issues with the role of presiding officers, right? So this again is a very important part of the answer, right? So you have to create the heading and then you have to proceed. So the very first issue that we can highlight is with respect to disqualification matters. It's always anti-defection law, role of speaker is always in use, right? So disqualification matters, right? So as far as the disqualification matters are concerned, very recently in Manipur a case happened. The case was Kesham Meghchandra Singh versus honorable speaker of the Manipur Legislative Assembly, right? So in this particular case, the presiding officer was not entertaining one of the requests of the party, the opposition party, to declare a particular to initiate proceedings of anti-disqualification and against a particular MLA who had crossed the floor. So in this particular case, the Supreme Court set up a timeline for the speaker to do that. And in this particular case, the Supreme Court also noted that the presiding officers, they are behaving as agents of the party and they are lacking in impartiality and objectivity as far as matters of anti-defection are concerned and disqualification of anti-defection are concerned. So they are often seen to be delaying proceedings of anti-defection, right? So this is one of their modus operandi, because no timeline has been set under the Anti-Defection Act. So they delay on the proceedings, or they prevent resignations, right? So these are the two ways in which the speaker obstructs justice under the anti-defection law. and behaves as the agent of the party. So he's been accused very recently of these things. The second important aspect that you can talk about that is very much in news these days is suspension of MPs or MLAs, right? Now, if you look at the recent data, there has been an increased surge in the presiding officers suspending the MPs and MLAs at both at the union and state level, and this has been phenomenal after the 16th Lok Sabha, right? And even in the states, if you would see, there have been important cases like Ashish Shelar versus the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly, right? So this was a recent case where the Supreme Court noted that the suspension of the 12 MLAs of Maharashtra, it was erroneous, and it unturned the verdict of the speaker. So suspension of MPs and MLAs is something that the speaker is always accused of. He is accused of interpreting the rules for suspending in favor of the ruling party, right? But when the tables turn, the speaker rarely acts on the ruling party itself, right? So that is another accusation that you can talk about. The next important issue that we can highlight is with respect to certification of money bills, which is perhaps one of the very important debates that you can highlight here. So certification of money bills is a big concern. Certification of money bills, right? So if you have to briefly write about certification of money bills, you can highlight two important cases. So one of the important cases was Roger Matthew versus Union of India, where a 5-judge Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi, ex-Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi, they struck down an amendment to 2017 Finance Act, right, where some reforms in the tribunals were passed as money bill, right? So this was struck down. And then another important verdict that came up was K.S. Puttaswamy, right? In this particular verdict, they were inquiring into whether it was constitutionally correct to pass the Aadhaar bill as a money bill, and already, although it was upheld to be done so, but one of the criticisms of the judges, it noted that it appears that the certification of money bill on various occasions done by the speaker is just to bypass the scrutiny of the upper house, right? So this was the scathing remark given by our present Chief Justice of India, CJI Chandrachud, right, in his dissenting judgment. So this clearly highlights that certification of money bills, particularly in ambiguous matters, it is done to favor the interest of the party and to bypass the upper house, which is a very serious concern, right? The next important point that we are going to talk about is use of, or rather misuse of, discretionary powers. So discretionary powers, the use of discretionary powers to the advantage of the ruling party. So the speaker has been given certain discretionary powers in matters where he has to refer a particular bill to the committee stage, or he has to take up voting on a particular issue. So he can decide whether he will go for a division vote or a voice vote, right? So it is completely up to the speaker to use his discretionary powers, and many a times it has been seen that he has been misusing these discretionary powers to the advantage of the ruling party to which he belongs, right? So this is something that is being accused to the speaker. Now if you look certain important bills, for example farm acts, right, the NCRCW amendment act, which was overturned by the Supreme Court very recently, they were all passed by voice votes. Article 107, it clearly states that the bill can only be passed when discussed right? The term used in that article is in the context of debated, and once a bill is debated, ideally there should be a casting vote, but many a times very important bills like Farm Act, etc., they are passed through voice vote, which is not the best democratic practice. Similarly, there is a falling trend of the bills not being referred to the committee stage, right? Very few bills are being sent to the committee stage for detailed scrutiny and all, which again is a discretionary power of the speaker, right? So this again is a big concern. The last point, the last issue that you can note about the partisan role of the speaker here is admission of motions, right? So often the speaker is accused to not admit certain important motions that are highlighted by the opposition MLAs to hold the government accountable. So often this presiding officer will, he will not welcome no confidence request for no confidence motion against the government, right? So these kinds of accusations has often been leveled against the presiding officers. So this is all you can write in this section, right? After this, it would be advisable that you conclude the answer with the observations that you have made, or if you want, you can even incorporate some of the important suggestions that has already been made regarding the office of the speaker. So we can say that impartiality, fairness, and autonomy, these are basically the hallmarks of the office of the presiding officers in our country. Now, it has been noted in various important judgments like Kyoto, Holohan versus Zashilu, right? That since the speaker is a member of the political party in India, so he is under considerable influence of the government also, right? So to facilitate that the speaker should be completely politically neutral, we can go with the UK practice, or to reform the office of the speaker, we can incorporate the suggestions of NCRCW, right, to improve the role of the presiding officers. So that is how you will conclude this particular answer, right? So I hope you really learnt a lot in this session, and we are also very happy to receive a lot of good feedback about mastering mains PYQ. And one thing that I would really urge you all to do is please engage with us in the comment section if you have any doubts. You guys are writing great answers. We will in short span of time will come up with a way to showcase some of the answers that we are getting from our viewers, right? And it is very important that you engage with us in the comment section. You share this video with your friends, you like this video, you comment this video, right? So it's very important for our motivation also, right? And I just want to bring this to your notice that since Diwali is round the corner, so we will discontinue this program just for 2 days, that is Friday and Monday. We just want you guys to enjoy a Diwali break without the stress of answer writing. So enjoy Diwali with your friends and families. We will continue this program again on Tuesday. Happy Diwali.